All right.
All right. Welcome to week 9. Um, went 2-3 in week 8 and fell to 18-21-1 overall. Um, got off to a rocky start. Owen, we were lost our first two games. I think both those games on the early slate, right? With
Mhm.
the Falcons -3. Bowen, I think that was your pick. That was like what was it? The auto. There was a name for it.
It was the
The
naughty boy.
Yeah, it was like the
yeah,
naughty boy pick of the week or something.
but it was an auto fade because who was it that you guys know that like
Oh,
absolutely
Jeremy.
yeah. Um, you know, broken clock is right twice a day, I guess. But yeah, that was a tough L. I guess if anything, a positive to draw from that is that Desmond Ritter is no longer the starting quarterback of the Atlanta Falcons. So small sacrifice for I think what maybe is a long term a better thing for the Falcons. And also lost the Steelers pick +2.5 against the Jags. Um, I don't know. Were we like we were kind of hanging around in that one for a while, weren't we?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, did they only lose by 10 or they might have been down by 10? At one point they had the ball down 10, and even then it was still a tough spot because I think we had them at +2.5. So even going for the
Yeah.
touchdown there didn't do us any good. But yeah, I think it was one of those where it's just a close game, and sometimes you just end up on the wrong side of the number. It doesn't necessarily make it like a bad pick, but it felt like we were kind of going uphill the entire game. So there
Yeah.
was never really a point in that.
That's how it felt
I
in
think
both
I think they made it
games.
interesting in the middle of it, but we got off to a start where it's just one of those where it's like we're going to be working hard all day to try and get this win because really a +2.5. You are trying to go for the outright win there. So
They scored a touchdown and make it 17-10. And then they forced a punt. And that's probably about when we started to have some hope.
There was a moment there for sure. There was a
And then
moment.
2 plays later, they threw a pick. Um, and then Jacksonville turned that into a field goal, made it 20-10. And, I think that's where we just kind of realized that this is probably not going to work out. Yeah. So we were always outside looking in, but like there was a moment, it felt like, oh, maybe we got a shot here. Yep. All right, and then came, battle back in the afternoon. Got that Bengals pick, +3.5, won it outright fairly convincingly. So that was a good win. And then we're on a roll on Sunday night, guys. That's 3 in a row.
Yep.
Chargers -8.5. It was a great win, got us back to 2-2. It gave us some hope going into Monday Night Football with the Raiders +9. To have another winning week. And ultimately the Raiders lost, did not cover. And then a day later decided to part ways with their head coach and their GM, as well as bench their starting quarterback. So Kieran, Bowen and I were talking about it before you got on, and just kind of saying I feel like maybe it's another situation where it's tough to take the L there on Monday night, but also maybe somewhat important. It's a small sacrifice for I think long term what's the right thing for the Raiders, and maybe puts them in an interesting spot this week. But we'll talk about that in a little bit.
yeah,
Any
even then, like the Raiders were not out of that game. They were very much in that, especially at the 9.5 number that we had for most of the game.
They
So
kept holding them to field goals, and
yeah,
that
all things considered, the Raiders defense, they played really well, especially on the
yeah,
goal line.
yep,
It felt like they had their backs up against the wall most of the game and they stood up for pretty
yep.
much all of it. So it's not like it was like a terrible pick or anything like that. And then, it's
No,
also just
no.
worth remembering that, we had like 90% of the public on Detroit. So just like out of principle, you have to fade that.
Yeah,
Most times I would push to still take that pick just
yep.
because over the long run it would pay off in our favor just because we know how things typically go when there's that heavy of a public favorite. So it was a principal play and it really didn't end up being that bad of a pick. It's always tough to try and justify a loss or anything like that. But I mean, there are fine losses, right? So, it's not like they went out there and got blown out by 40 points or never in it. They were playing really tough football for most of it. So it's not like we were far off with our analysis.
I mean, if one of those deep balls, lands in Devontae's hands, we probably, I mean, they might win outright depending on if they got to. If you got both those balls, I mean, that's a totally different game. And I mean, the Lions kind of kept the door open, like you were saying, all game. They almost were kind of, just unable to put it away, at least against the spread. It was right there. So
I mean, that was insane how bad those throws were. Like,
it's really just, it's no knock on us. I mean, I think it was a good read.
I do too.
Yeah.
So 2-3 week, not bad considering we got off to that 0-2 start. Is what it is. It's interesting though, like looking at the record of our picks. Like everything's kind of around 500 now. It's like everything's balanced. So Bowen and Kieran, you guys are 4-4. I'm 3-5. Our Sunday night pick is now 3-5, and then our Monday night pick is 4-3-1. So
I was gonna say our Monday nights are like definitely 500.
We got a lot of parity, if you will. All right, so we were kind of starting to talk about this a little bit before I think we started recording. Big story for this week is some of these QB matchups in week 9. One of you guys sent I think it was like a screenshot of a tweet or something earlier this week, but there's 5 games that are just absolutely atrocious. You've got Daniel Jones against Aiden O'Connell for the Giants and Raiders. Jaron Hall versus Taylor Heineke, and that's Falcons and the Vikes. Clayton Tune versus PJ Walker. Clayton Tune, that's a name, Kieran, I think we've heard you talk about him a little bit. You've been interested to see a little Clayton Tune action, but that's the Cardinals and the Browns. Tyson Bagent, whatever, versus Derek Carr. That's exciting. That's for the Bears and the Saints. And then we see a return of Brett Rippon against Jordan Love.
Who's he? Oh, he's starting for the.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's confirmed that Stafford's out, but like it's a UCL thing, and I can't imagine like even if he plays, I can't imagine like he's effective. And I think it's the same UCL that he injured on that. I think it's the same thumb he hurt a couple years ago. So I don't know what the status is there. I think he's kind of up in the air, but even still, it's like I don't know how much of an advantage there is. It's like Jordan Love is the other quarterback.
Yeah.
But anyway, you see some of those matchups, and you can't help but wonder if the NFL has too many teams.
It's shocking. I think we're finally feeling the effect of a big wave of veteran quarterbacks. I feel like the past like 4 or 5 years have really the guys that were playing into their late 30s, mid 30s, all kind of went their separate ways, or either immediate or just retired. And I think we're feeling it. I think especially with the loss of Rodgers and a few other guys, Kirk now after last week, there's just not that many good quarterbacks right now. It's just like it's brutal. We're on the backup's backup for some of these teams. So it's interesting.
Even Daniel Jones, I think they were expecting him to be out until at least week 10, but he's back early, and I think it's mostly because Tyrod Taylor got hurt. He can't play.
Tommy DeVito.
Yeah, I mean they're
negative
rushing
1 yards, I believe.
I think they're rushing Daniel Jones back because the DeVito experiment was just. I mean, that didn't. You can't do that again.
No. That's how you lose the locker room, is playing Tommy DeVito after what he showed.
Yeah,
I mean it's
tough.
Yeah.
Tough. All right. Should we get into the picks?
Yeah, we can step over to the wheel. All right. I'll lead it off. I'm going with let me see if I can get to my first page. The Dolphins plus 1.5. So this is the Germany
yeah.
game. They are
Fuck
plus 1.5 against the Chiefs. We've seen some of the top teams slip a little bit lately, and a lot of these, a trend that we've kind of been looking at is teams going into their bye week and kind of limping into their bye week. I feel like the Chiefs might be in that position. They're coming off a tough loss to Denver. Now they got to fly all the way out to Germany. And I feel like these are just two good teams that are kind of trending in different directions. Of course, as I just said, the Chiefs coming off that loss, but then you got the Dolphins. I feel like they're kind of picking it up, right? They got Jalen Ramsey back. They just beat the Patriots. After that little slip up against the Bills in the middle of their schedule, they started putting those wins back together. So I think the Dolphins, their vibes are pretty high. I've seen some of the media clips from McDaniel, from Tua, different guys coming out. They seem kind of upbeat about it. They seem excited about being in Germany. All I've seen from the Chiefs is MVS talking about how it kind of sucks having to go all the way to Germany, having to find babysitters for his dogs, and then
Oh my God.
like the one positive in everything is that he gets to stay with like his poop schedule or something. So to me, I feel like the Dolphins are maybe more embracing coming out to Germany and trying to get a win against a top tier team, maybe trying to get a win back after losing against the Bills. And I think the Dolphins, both teams have buys next week, but I think the Chiefs are trying to maybe just get into the bye week. So I like the Dolphins here as underdogs. Tyreek Hill against his old team. I feel like we're talking about like a 200-yard, 3-touchdown game. So I think everything's pointing to the Dolphins here.
It's a big.
Yeah. Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Bone, please.
I was gonna pop in. Kieran, that was my pick. If I were to have the wheel land on me first. I love the Dolphins for pretty much the same reasons. I love the Tyreek angle. He was talking about it this week, and he just like the whole story of him really not wanting to leave Kansas City, but they just weren't willing to really budge on a number, and the Dolphins were, and it was all just kind of like sort of like it felt like a big misunderstanding on why he left Kansas City. And I just love the kind of little revenge angle there. The Germany, nobody likes going to Germany. I don't think the Dolphins are necessarily thrilled to be out there, but I didn't even know about MVS saying that. But the Chiefs definitely have that. Super Bowl champs a couple times now. They're the class of the league. They probably feel this is kind of below them. This is kind of a Jags or a NFC South team should be sent out there for these games. Pats versus Colts next week. That's kind of the game that goes to Germany. So yeah, that was my pick. I like that they're getting 1.5. I believe it is. Kieran, you said
Yeah.
1.5. I didn't really understand the line, especially after the Chiefs just laid a fucking dump against the Broncos. That was probably the lowest we've ever seen the Chiefs play, at least in the past couple of years. So I like the idea of them limping into the bye week as well. So like the pick a lot.
Tell you, this is a huge opportunity for Miami too, because right now the East is like it's kind of wide open. Like that Chiefs loss to the Broncos was huge. And then after this, actually, it's interesting. I'm looking at the Dolphins schedule. They have I don't know why the NFL did this, but they got the Munich game, and then they're playing the Raiders on Thursday.
I believe they have a bye. Are you sure they don't have a bye week?
Oh no, you know what? Yeah, you're right. I'm okay. I missed a one in there.
That would have been like malpractice by the NFL.
I mean that's what I'm like. I'm like, you got to be shitting me. But I was failing to see a one. But they get the Raiders, the Jets, the Commanders, the Titans, the Jets again, and then they finish with the Cowboys, the Ravens, and the Bills. But that's like a huge opportunity for them. They get past the Chiefs, they get a win here, and then they get a bye. And then you take that schedule for the next 5 games, like you could be looking at 12-2 and like in the driver's seat, in the AFC. And then, obviously you finish with a really tough schedule, but I mean, at that point, you've put yourself in a great position for, potentially the top spot. Plus, if the Chiefs are still there in the mix, you're going to have that head-to-head, win over them. And then that Bills game at the end of the season, the last game of the season could be huge, especially given the the result from earlier this year. Yeah, I think it's it'll be interesting. I mean, they haven't, the one stat I saw is that they haven't beaten a team what is it, with a winning record since week 3 of last year when they beat the Bills. The Dolphins haven't. But I think they're catching the Chiefs in as good a spot as they probably could, and I think, Kieran, it seems like as you were saying, the vibes are a lot higher on the Dolphin side. Seem to be embracing it. So it's an explosive team. Like, if they're going to make a statement, this is it. You got to do it right now, so they got to be highly motivated.
All right. Back to the wheel.
Back to the wheel.
Bone.
All right. What was that second
All
pick?
It's the Raiders -2. I'm taking the cheese. I'm taking the cheese. I mean, we saw it literally with the same exact franchise 3 years ago with Rich Bisaccia coming in after the whole Gruden debacle, and they did the same. I don't know when he got fired, but it was maybe a little bit later in the season, but it was same vibe, same feel, same messy firing. Josh McDaniels, I think we've probably said it every week on this show so far. If we had to talk about the Raiders, dude's a loser. Shouldn't be an NFL head coach ever again. That whole team, the whole team energy was clearly just not there. They all hated each other or hated the coaching staff, who were all, I think the OC got fired as well. So should be no more bad vibes on that offense. The new head coach, the Antonio Pierce, his name is.
Yep.
Yeah.
Incredible motivator. It seems like he's going to have the guys ready. And again, we've said it on the show, they have elite talent. They still have that elite talent. I like Devontae, Tristan. I know you've had it in the Twitter DMs today. This is just the easiest smash spot for Devontae, coming off a 1-for-11 game. So give me the Raiders 2 points. I like it under that 2.5, 3. So yeah, let's ride.
That was my number 1 pick.
I had to be. I know. It has to be.
I was on it. I just sitting there, and I'm like, just riding the vibes, feeling the vibes, but I mean, even beyond that, and I mentioned this earlier when we were talking about some of the QB matchups, but I was reading last week, or I mean, not last week. I mean, it was literally a few days ago. Just some of the concerns about, like, is Daniel Jones actually ready to return, or are they rushing him back because of the fact that Tyrod Taylor got hurt? You've now got Darren Waller on the IR. Their kicker just went on the IR. I don't even think they have a kicker right now. Seems like they're in a bit of disarray. I do feel like this is a huge weight off the Raiders' shoulders. Love the thought of them coming out just fired up, kind of opening things up, playing loose. It's my number 1 pick. Kieran.
Yeah, I mean, Antonio Pierce's dad's name is Cleo. We were talking about that.
Yes,
right. The vibes are on that.
Yep.
We saw the video where Devontae Adams playing on the mini hoop in the locker room and mocking people that were gonna obviously have commentary about being distracted. This is why they aren't winning, that type of shit. So yeah, I mean, we see the interim bump come all the time. Sometimes it lasts for a week or two. Sometimes it lasts for half a season. So, I think that you just gotta kind of grab onto that. And I think that Aiden O'Connell is, maybe a little underrated by the public. I know that his stats weren't great when he came out and he played against the Chargers. He was playing against the Chargers. He got sacked by Khalil Mack like 7 times. I think he tied the single game record or something like that. So that's not exactly easy for a rookie making their first start. And especially with the incompetent Josh McDaniels, and they just totally cleaned house. Mick Lombardi's out of there. Mike Lombardi was on the Pat McAfee show talking about, this isn't the end for my son, everything like that. It's pathetic. Yeah, I mean, I think the vibes are just high. I think that O'Connell's going to target Devontae Adams 20 times. He's going to have, all the yards that he wants, all the touchdowns that he wants. And I just don't think the Giants are going to be able to keep up. So I had the Raiders on my card as well.
Yeah, I mean, just in terms of the game that we did see with AOC, he did feed the big boys. Devontae, I think, had 13 receptions in the game AOC played, and I think Josh Jacobs had 8 receptions in that game. I was just looking at it before this. So I mean, he feeds the guys that he knows are gonna produce if he can get the ball in their hands. Over 20 targets or touches for them in that game. So if he can just replicate that against a team, I mean, we just talked about vibes on, the Raiders. If any team had comparable vibes or probably the worst vibes in the league now as a franchise, it's probably the Giants. Now that the Raiders cleaned house, I mean, the Giants kind of seem like the next team, maybe, where I don't know if Daboll's going to stay, or Daniel Jones is going to be the starter. They're kind of just really discombobulated right now. So, love the spot for the Raiders.
I mean, I'd
Yeah,
assume
he targeted Jacobs 11 times, 8 receptions on 11 targets, 81 yards. Devontae Adams had 8 catches on 13 targets for 75 yards.
Eight catches. Fuck.
And AOC, I mean, he was
Fuck
24 for
that.
39, 238 yards, threw a pick. That was at the end of the game. When, they got them in a position to score the go-ahead touchdown. He ended up throwing the pick, but he was sacked 7 times for a total loss of 50 yards. So that doesn't necessarily make a rookie debut too easy.
Yeah.
No.
All right.
All right.
Love the pick. Back to the wheel.
Nice.
All right.
Here we go. Let me just pull up my notes. So I'll be going to my number 2 pick since the Raiders were my number 1. I'm taking the Seahawks +6 over the Ravens. Just a lot of trends that seem to heavily favor the Seahawks in the spot, as well as heavily go against the Ravens in the spot. So Pete Carroll on the road versus a team that's over 500. 26-19-1 against the spread, including 8-6-1 against the spread in EST games. Lamar Jackson, like, horrible in these spots. 12-21 against the spread as a home favorite. Among 210 QBs over the last 20 years, he's ranked 204th against the spread as a home favorite. He's just 9-16 against the spread playing a home game at 1 p.m. Eastern. He's 19-6 against the spread as a favorite of 3 points or less, or an underdog in all other spots. 19-29 against the spread in his career. Jim Harbaugh is 20 games over 500 against the spread as an underdog, 4 games under 500 against the spread as a favorite. Love the Seahawks getting 6. I love the fact that it's 6 and not 5.5.
Yep.
That's the pick.
I didn't have this one on my card. My lean was towards the Ravens, only because it's inside of a touchdown. The only thing that kind of scared me away, because my knee-jerk reaction was kind of towards the Seahawks, but then I just remembered, Lamar Jackson, he's 17-1 straight up against the NFC. He's not great against the spread. He's 8-10 against the spread, but like I said, inside that touchdown, I just get nervous about that winning record and that trend continuing to build. We saw what happened when Detroit went out to Baltimore. They got absolutely spanked. So I just worried about something like that, with it being a 6-point spread. Say they just win by a touchdown, and continue his impressive run against the NFC. So I just stayed away from it. But I could be talked on any side. Like I said, my knee-jerk reaction was towards the Seahawks, but I just stayed away for that reason.
Yeah, so I didn't have the this game on my top 3 coming in, but I did have a few things that kind of popped out. I looked into it a bit. So the Seahawks this year, pretty good against the spread. Have a really good record in real life, 5-2. Overall a really solid team, really good defense, a lot of young players. Probably the best cornerback tandem uh, in the league, maybe with Witherspoon and Tariq Woolen. They obviously have talent, but my only fear is in the games they beat Jared Goff, but in their 4 other wins this season they've beaten Josh Dobbs, Andy Dalton, Daniel Jones, and PJ Walker. So I'm a little nervous, seeing Lamar, different play style than they've seen all year. Uh, just could see
They
them. I could
only
see
lost by 4 to the Bengals, and they were right there inside the 10.
Oh, I know. No, I
That
like
was
I
in
like I like
the
the
mortal
points.
lock of the year.
I'm just a little nervous for the young defense going against a guy like Lamar when they haven't necessarily seen a quarterback like him. Not that there's many guys like Lamar, but they haven't really proven that they can be a good quarterback. I mean, they beat Jared Goff. He's a good quarterback. That was week 2 though. So since week 2, they have not beaten a good quarterback. So it's just tough to. I mean, the number's enough. If it was like a 3-point spread, I'd be a little bit more reluctant. But the 6 points, it is a lot of points. So, they don't even have to. They can lose and still cover that number pretty easily. So, that's all I had. It was just more nervousness with a young defense against an elite quarterback. But that's it is what it is. So, like the pick.
I was looking. I don't think there's much of a sample size at all. It looks like they played probably at least for the data on Action Network. They only played twice since 2015. So not much of. I was going to see if there was like any examples of Pete Carroll versus Lamar Jackson, anything like that. But I don't think a game from 4 years ago is really that great of an example.
Yeah. All right. On to the Sunday night game.
Yeah. All right. Let me pull this back up.
Great game, by the way.
Yeah. I like both these games, honestly.
All right, Bone, get started.
All right. I'm gonna go with the I'm gonna go with the Bills.
Would you just flip a coin?
No. I'm gonna go with the Bills. Originally I was gonna go Bengals, but I've had a feeling in my gut. I've been looking at this game. Just I don't know why. I think it's the Demar. I think it's the Damar Hamlin aspect. I know last year when they played, they did not finish the game. There was obviously Damar Hamlin. I don't know why. Maybe it's just me being a sucker. See the 2 points they're getting. Burrows look great. Bengals have looked good recently, but and the Bills haven't. I don't know why. I don't know why I like the game, but I'm just gonna throw out the Bills. Bills first.
So, Kieran, I'm wondering, should I go next? Just because or do you want to go?
Well, I'll go. I'm on the other side, so
okay.
I'll pitch the Bengals -1.5, just because I'm not really buying into the Damar Hamlin revenge game. I mean, first of all, I don't even know if he's like playing.
He might be.
He doesn't play. So it's like he's not even really going to be out there. And I think that there is. I feel like this is maybe a situation where the Bills maybe get a little too emotional, especially it's going to be happening. I think this is at Cincinnati, right? And is that where it happened? Did it happen? It happened at Cincinnati, correct?
Hold on, though. He's been inactive. He's only played 1 game. He
hasn't been playing at all. Well, and that's why there's a controversy that people get mad about, because he's he started off as like the -10,000 favorite to win comeback player of the year, and now it's down to like -150. But people weren't looking at those odds preseason, so now people just see that he's still the favorite. Like, so people like Frank Hopkins are like getting pissed, like it's fucking bullshit that he's favorite to win it. It's like he's gone down every week. Like, relax. Like, if Tua keeps playing like this, by
Yeah.
like mid-season, like by the trade deadline,
Yeah.
he'll probably pass him. So it's like, just give it a little bit of time. They're not voting on the award yet.
Wait,
And if
could-
DeMar Hamlin does come back, then it's like, it's kind of tough to argue that there's a better comeback story there. I mean, come on.
I mean, he's literally. I mean, he's like the Undertaker.
Yeah,
The,
I mean, we were talking about this probably a month and a half ago, where I said I was like, the only way that like somebody else could justify winning it is if Tua comes out and wins the MVP, because I mean, he was also facing the end of his career. So if he comes out and actually plays, and Hamlin doesn't play, then then maybe you do have to give it to Tua, and it's trending in that direction. So I don't know why people are getting so mad, but Hamlin, I mean, hasn't even been practicing. I was joking around that he's ducking the revenge game, everything like that. But I do feel like that, even though like this is a road game, and it's still going to be kind of like an emotional drain for Buffalo, because they're probably going to honor the Cincinnati EMT and the Bengals staff that won the SB or whatever the hell they won, and that's going to be part of DeMar Hamlin, and then the Bills are going to be part of that. And the Bengals were all business in that game. I mean, they were leading; they were up 7-3 when Hamlin went down, and then they came out and they had the rematch in the playoffs, and they won 27-10. So I feel like we're going to see a similar situation here, where the Bengals might be a little bit more focused. They're going to be at home. I feel like they're the team that's trending up, while we're seeing the Bills. They're kind of limping around. They're losing a bunch of key players. So I like the Bengals here at home to just take care of business.
I also had the Bengals. They're heating up as a team. We've seen it. They just beat the 49ers outright on the road. The Bills continue to struggle. I mean, over the last 4 games, they eked out some close wins over Tampa Bay, which they almost blew at the end there. I mean, not just the fact that that Hail Mary could have been caught by Chris Godwin, but I mean, they had what, like a 2-possession lead, 2-touchdown lead, and almost blew it. And they did beat the Giants in that Sunday night game, with Tyrod Taylor, but I mean, that was a gross game. And then they've lost to the Jaguars, who were 6-2, tied for first in the AFC, like playing good football, but they also lost to the Patriots, who, let's be honest, not a good football team. Burrow seems healthy. That offense has been clicking the last few weeks. It just seems to get better and better. I think it'll be a good game. I think it'll be a relatively close game. By no stretch do I see Cincy like running away with this thing, but I like him inside of a field goal. I like him to win. And I think the fact that we're inside of a field goal, I like the spot.
All right.
Run the
on to the next one.
Let's do it.
Tristan.
Oh, all right. I didn't I didn't have like a ton of notes on this. I like the Jets. I like the Jets getting 3.5 Monday night, taking the points. The defense continues to be really, really good. They've won 3 straight. I think they're hanging in there. And, we've kind of talked about this a little bit over, the last few weeks. Like, there's the potential that Rodgers could come back, and they just seem to be, kind of battling their way with this will that, they're just getting the job done. Like, it's by no means is it pretty at all. I mean, that game last week against the Giants was as ugly as it gets, but they're just getting the job done. And that defense is tough. And I think, this Chargers offense continues to be somewhat underwhelming, despite all the weapons they have. Going up against an elite defense. I like the Jets getting the points here.
I was on the Chargers. It wasn't really like a too strong of a lean. I mean, I was kind of thinking, right, the Chargers could just be that team where, we're always just trying to chase them. Last week, they were the Michael Corleone pick where, we thought that we were out and they pulled us right back in. And of course, they won that game, and they, and this kind of feels like that spot where we follow that again. We try and follow it up with them getting the win, and then they come out and they lose. But at the same time, I mean, to your point, Tristan, saying that the Jets have won 3 in a row, the Jets don't win 4 games in a row. I don't see that happening. I don't see it being that close of a game where it's going to come down to the field goal and the hook's going to kill us. I think if anything, it will be decided by a touchdown. I mean, Keenan Allen's been cooking. Austin Eckler, he seems to be getting back into his groove. I think that offense can start clicking. And I feel like maybe we kind of start to see almost like the Bizarro, like Costanza just going against the opposite. And maybe right now the Chargers, they kind of go against it. And yeah, this is the spot where they typically lose in that position. They come off that win. It looks like they're starting to build something and they fall flat. But I like them to come in here because I feel like people are going to like the Jets here. I think they're going to be a trendy underdog pick. And because of that, I think that's a good time to maybe go against the instinct and actually ride with the Chargers.
All right. Before you speak, hold on. Kieran, I am curious. As you mentioned that, do you have the numbers? Like, because you usually go to what, Action Network to look at the and I am kind of curious because I haven't seen where the action is.
74% of the bets are on the Jets, 91% of the money.
Okay, Bowen, you're up.
The Jets have won 3 in a row.
Yeah,
that's the thing.
Broncos, Eagles, Giants.
What's it gonna do?
I didn't know that.
You gonna flip a coin?
No, I'm mentally flipping a coin right now. No, I'm gonna go with the Chargers. I don't think 3.5 is enough points against a team like the Chargers. Having Eckler's kind of emergence last week, he hasn't really been himself all year. Had been battling that injury. That was a high ankle. Last week he looked explosive. He in the pass game he was very involved. Really took over that game at points and broke off some big runs. It was good to see him back. So for that reason, if it was like a 6-point, 7-point spread, I think I'd be more leaning the Jets just because they do have an elite defense, do have an elite secondary who are both healthy with Reed and Sauce. 2 top tier guys, but just think that number's a little too tight. Don't think the Jets win 4 in a row, and for that reason, Chargers.
Yeah, and if I may put on my Colin Cowherd hat, I feel like I'm feeling a sense of urgency for the Chargers.
What does that mean? Hold on.
I feel like I'm feeling a sense of urgency from the Chargers where it's like it's starting to get to that point in Herbert's career where he's getting into that second contract and the narrative starts to kick in. Can he win? It's like we see from like all the superstars, everything like that. Why haven't they won? Why haven't they made the playoffs? Why haven't they had playoff success? Anything like that. And then Staley, of course, he's starting to feel the heat on his job. And it's kind of like when you get to the end of the school year in college and you don't have that internship anymore, and all of a sudden you're on Indeed all day and you're typing away and you're applying to every job, just trying to find anything that hits. I feel like the Chargers now want to make it work, that Staley wants to keep his job. Herbert wants to take that next step. Keenan Allen, Austin Eckler, guys that are getting old, they want to start winning. They're tired of just being mediocre. And I feel like last week was kind of like a weight lifted off their shoulders. I had the game on after it ended. I saw the post-game interviews, everything, and listening to Eckler talk, listening to Herbert talk, it feels like they are kind of like feeling like a breath of fresh air. And it's like they know that they have to take this step and they have to go on a little bit of a run, because if they don't, then all of a sudden Staley gets fired. Keenan Allen, he's maybe not around next season. I know that there's an option to cut him. Same with Mike Williams. So I think that everybody on that team collectively is starting to feel that urgency.
Mm-hmm. All right. Chargers are the pick.
Do you guys think Rodgers actually comes back like at some point this season if the Jets stay competitive? Is that like humanly possible?
I mean, if they make the playoffs, I bet.
I guess it is, because I mean, think about like how quickly Cam Akers was ready to play again. And I've kind of not, like, it's not like I'm like a Achilles supporter or something, but I haven't really sat right with me how people have kind of been laughing in the torn Achilles face with some of these guys coming back so soon, because Cam Akers came back and he's fucking sucked. Like we just saw the Rams move on from him for Kyron Williams, who was like a mid-round pick, kind of a guy who, like, who knows like how legit he is or anything like that. And like, yeah, he's starting to, oh, hey, what's up? What's up, mama?
What's up? Oh shit.
Hi, Saki.
How are you?
Good.
Oh my God, what a surprise. This is incredible. Wow.
Well, now she'll get like a listing on the podcast. Like, it's got us three, and then it also has Robin Zora. And
No, Nice guy.
with special guest Robin Zora. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like these guys come back, and it's like we really haven't seen a true success story come back from the torn Achilles. Like I said, I mean, people are going to say, "Oh, Cam Akers is looking good with the Vikings now," but like I just said, I mean, the Rams had no problem moving on from him. James Robinson, his career seems to be over. Deontay Foreman is a guy that seems to pop up for 4 to 6 weeks at a time, but like there's a reason why he can't get his own starting job in some backfield. So we haven't seen like a running back come back from that, but it is a little bit different for the quarterback. They're not asked to do the same things. They're not putting the same strain on it. So I guess in a sense, he probably could come back for the playoffs, right? I guess.
Yeah.
But it's like, I mean, I feel like people are also, it's like, how often do we actually see somebody rehab? And that's kind of the thing too, is like, I feel like we're now just seeing people rehab in public from it now. And instead of taking that time to rehab on like the practice field and trying to get realistic reps, they're just saying, fuck it, go out there and try and do it on the field. But I mean, what does everybody have like a timeline written down of like the expected Achilles recovery? It's like, wow, can you believe he's already throwing? It's like, I don't know. Is that like crazy for somebody at this stage in the recovery? Like, I don't know like what the typical recovery timeline is like for a torn Achilles.
He could be sitting on a couch throwing the ball.
Yeah, like it's been 2 months. Like, I don't know. I'm not that surprised that he can stand up and throw a ball. Like,
yeah. Jesus.
It's like, wow, he was walking without crutches. It's like, okay, like
this guy's unbelievable. Yeah.
That really is the darkest timeline too. If Rodgers comes back for the playoffs and like makes a run, I don't think my body could handle that. With the Jets,
that's the thing is like that's just not what happens for the Jets. Like what happens for the Jets is Rodgers comes back and he tears it again. Like yeah, like that's just like what
immediately.
happens. Well, that's what happens when you're on the
flag out of the tunnel again.
Yeah.
Like he just
exactly. That's what I always say. Like people just don't get it. People are like, oh, I don't know. They got good. I mean, first of all, people were talking this year like, do the Jets have a top 5 receiver group? Just because it was Garrett Wilson, Alan Lazard, and Randall Cobb, just because Aaron Rodgers brought them over. It's like, what are we talking about?
Yeah.
People were talking about them as like a legit top receiver group. It's like, this is insane that we were talking about them like this. It's like, I always say, it's like, it doesn't matter. Like, they could have like the all-pro, the first team all-pro team as their starting lineup, and they'd still win 8 or 9 games. Like, that's just like what happens with the Jets. And then Rodgers running out with the American flag, people, crying. It's like, USA propaganda. People are like crying on the timeline. This is the greatest thing ever. And then he tears his Achilles 2 plays in. Like, that's just what happens with the New York Jets.
I mean, it's like clockwork for sure. I'll tell you though, if he does come back and start in a playoff game, that the ratings will be through the roof.
Oh yeah,
absolutely through the roof. So,
yeah.
All right. Let's just to recap the games. Make sure I get these picks right. All right, we got the Dolphins +1.5. Kieran, that was your pick.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
We got the Raiders -2. Bowen, that was your pick. We got the Seahawks +6. That was my pick. Sunday night, we got the Bengals -1.5. And then on Monday night, we got the Chargers -3.5.
5-0.
Let's do it.
Let's go. I mean, is that I guess 4-1 gets us to 500? Because that would put us at 22, 22-1.
That's correct.
So let's make that the goal. Let's get to 500 at least.
I would love that.
Tristan, this is the start of the 3rd quarter of the Circa?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. So clean slate there too. So
Yeah, go 5-0 this week.
That's right. That's right. I had it off. I was thinking last week was week 8. I was thinking that must have been the first week, but yes, okay. Clean slate. Let's go 4-1, 5-0. Let's get 2 or above 500 and get a good start for that. What do they call it? The booby prize.
Let's do it. I love it. Awesome. All right.
Another
good week of picks. Let's
yes, sir.
I'll see you on the other side.
Yep, I'll see you guys.
Yes, sir.
See ya.
Have a good night.